Today I will show you the 11 must-know tips to pass the McKinsey Solve game. First, we will go through 7 general tips for McKinsey Solve before diving into 4 special tips for the ecosystem and Redrock mini-games. Use the timestamp to jump to or replay your favorite part. Tip number 1. Make sure your setup is adequate. This may sound odd, but one of my clients did get disqualified from McKinsey Solve because his computer broke down in the middle of the test. No one wants that to happen, right? As we all know, McKinsey Solve is a series of online 3D games, which means your computer and the internet will be under heavy pressure. If your setup gives up mid-test, you will unlikely get a second chance. So, what do you need for your computer? A 1080p screen with 60% RGB as a minimum. If you don't know how to check this, just ask a tech guy. A modern CPU. To put it simply, it should be less than 4 years old. And please, use a mouse instead of a touchpad. A mouse should give you more flexibility and precision in your actions. You also need a stable 30 Mbps internet connection at a minimum. To ensure the connection is stable, ask your family members or roommates to stop using Wi-Fi during your test. Tip number 2. Utilize pen and paper. They are the best form of note-taking for McKinsey Solve for 3 reasons. First, if you use spreadsheets, you will need to switch tabs windows frequently. This may reduce your ability to concentrate and make double checks harder. In the worst cases, you might accidentally close one of the windows. Second, this multitasking can drastically reduce your computer's performance, especially on old computers, which hinders your test performance. Third, drafting with pen and paper is a lot more flexible. You can quickly draw maps, charts, and issue trees for better visualization. However, if you are comfortable with using spreadsheets, your computer can afford to run both simultaneously, or you have 2 screens side by side. Suit yourself. Tip number 3. Use the tutorial to learn about the game mechanics. McKinsey will give you a tutorial for each game you have to play in McKinsey Solve. We advise spending 10-15 minutes on each tutorial, or until you are absolutely sure about how everything works. The minigames contain a lot of information to process. If you do not understand the variables and what to do with the given information, you are essentially failing. Reading our articles and watching our videos on the minigames or practicing with my simulation can help you familiarize yourself with the interface and mechanics of Solve. But even if you have memorized everything beforehand, you should take your time with the actual test instructions. After all, my information can leave out something if McKinsey Solve makes an unannounced update, and for that, I can only rely on my customers' reports. So, if you purchased our simulation and encounter anything new or different from your McKinsey, don't hesitate to contact us for a chance to claim a refund for your precious reports. Tip number 4. Use a table to categorize data. When you start reading the tutorial, note which information to prioritize. I advise categorizing data by main tasks, important variables, and potentially misleading information. Create a table and start arranging variables into each category. With a note matrix like that, you are more likely to identify which information can be helpful. Tip number 5. Do not make mental notes. Not only is it more likely for you to leave out minor but important details, but you can also panic and fail to remember something. Without adequately written notes, you might have to wasting precious time. Tip number 6. Test your hypotheses on paper before making decisions. After you have composed enough information and chosen the right combination of animals or paths, write them all out once again and see if there are any inconsistencies or holes in your logic. When testing your hypotheses, use your calculator to avoid making unwanted mistakes. Tip number 7. Check the clock now and then. The test can be immersive in a negative way. You can get too absorbed into the mini-games and lose track of time. You won't have enough time left for the second mini-game, or worse, to submit your results. So, do check the clock from time to time to make sure you are still sticking to the plan. You can try using our simulations to practice and improve those skills, preferably 2 weeks or more before the actual test, as we believe that is the minimum amount of time you need to understand the games entirely. Now, let's dive deeper into the 2 mini-games. I will give you 4 tips for the ecosystem building and the Redrock Study Task. First, I will present 1 special tip for the McKinsey ecosystem game. Tip number 8. Prioritize species with high calories provided and low calories needed. In the ecosystem building minigame, you have to create an ecosystem with 8 species from a list of 39. One of the key objectives in this game is to ensure the selected predator and prey calories provided are above 0. This objective confuses many candidates when training and taking the test. To make this simple, you can prioritize species with high calories provided and low calories needed. Species with high calories provided have a better chance of surviving. Meanwhile, species with low calories needed won't have to eat much to live, indirectly helping eaten species have a better chance of survival. To learn more about this strategy, watch this video on how to break the ecosystem building game. Next, for the Redrock Study Task, here are 3 important tips. Tip number 9. Use the keyboard numpad. Redrock Study Task requires you to use the on-screen calculator to input the results of your calculation. However, you can speed up this process by using the keyboard numpad. You can also use the number keys if you prefer, or do not have a numpad. Either way, it is much faster than clicking on each character of the on-screen calculator. Tip number 10. Separating a long math expression into smaller segments. You can also try separating a long math expression into smaller segments for easier calculation. This might take a bit more time, but because the calculation is shorter, it would be harder to make mistakes and easier to check and fix. Tip number 11. Keep your research journal organized. Another tip for Redrock is to have a clean and organized research journal. This will help you navigate all the collected data faster, saving a lot of time in a time-stressed test. To have a clean and organized journal, you should label each data point and set related data points close to each other to ensure coherence. Furthermore, we also suspect that McKinsey might evaluate how you collect and store data in the journal to calculate the final score. Watch our video on every Redrock question type to discover more insight on Redrock. And there you have it. 11 tips to help you ace the McKinsey Solve game. Remember, stay calm, stay organized, and you can ace the test.